today's HomeNE webinar. Can you believe it? It's November, and this will be our final webinar for 2019. But I'm Lori Ferguson. Good day, and welcome to today's online HomeNE webinar. I am your tour guide for today's conversation, and I'm with South Central Economic Development District in Holdridge, in case this is your first time that you are joining us. And John, I just have to share this. John says he's thankful that Thanksgiving isn't until next Thursday. So I'm sure there's an interesting story behind that. So thank you, John, for sharing. As of noon today, we had 54 individuals from across Nebraska, and I believe even someone from South Dakota, joining us to hear from Chris Anderson and Miles McGinnis from Central City. And I'm excited to have each of these gentlemen share today about the history, the stories, and the accomplishment of their community over the past 10 years and the journey to being this year's Governor's Showcase Community Award winner. So it's a great story, and I'm looking forward to their presentation today. So I think according to Sherry's notes, we have 7 first-time attendees here. So thank you and welcome to all of you. And so far to date, we've had over 103 communities join us here in the webinar. So we are showcasing Central City. Chris is the city administrator and Miles is the economic development director. So they will be joining us momentarily. So our agenda for today is as follows. We'll hear from Chris and Miles, and then we'll open it up for some questions for the speakers, and then we'll conclude with some group discussion and final thoughts. So be thinking about those questions as Chris and Miles present. So HomeNE is a learning network, and we've discovered that we learn best when we interact and engage with each other. So I am now going to turn it over to Sharon Heffley. She is our Executive Director here at South Central Economic Development District, and she's actually hosting one of our watch parties. So Sharon, go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I see head nods. All right.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. It is the November edition of the HomeNE 2019 webinar series. And you might be saying, okay, I've tuned in, somebody tapped me into this, but what is HomeNE? And HomeNE is a learning network that was established in 2017 with people just like each of you in mind. We want to build a network of individuals and communities with a shared interest in assessing and addressing housing issues in rural Nebraska. We want to provide a safe space to be vulnerable about what's been tried and find motivation to take one more step in the right direction. We want to learn from the successes and struggles of others. We want to take away new ideas or see things through a new lens and to inspire you. What you're doing is valuable. No one can or will do it quite like you, and now is the time to leave your mark on the universe. So South Central Economic Development District acts as the lead agent for the HomeNE Learning Network, providing monthly webinars and 2 events called gatherings a year. We do that in communities around the state, and just 2 weeks ago, we held our fall gathering in Holdridge. We discussed the topic of revitalizing weary houses in our communities and changing the narrative about the places we live to attract new residents. To those who attended, thank you, and for those that had a conflict, we hope that we'll see you in the spring. Like Lori said, I'm not in the office today. I'm in the Central City Marion County Activity Center, which we got to be out of here by 3:10 because it's going to be full of kids. It's a really cool place. We're excited to be here. We're having a watch party. We've been here for the Nebraska Development Network Central Region meeting since 10 o'clock this morning. And so you see there's, well, we have one just get up and leave, and Cliff's hiding over here on the other side, but we're all going to watch this together. And so just want to quickly share the growth of our learning network over the past 2 years. Again, if you're on your computer, you'll see those stars indicate people that have the communities they're from that have been on our webinars. And I forgot to tell you, Sherry, but I went through the list. We're actually at 105 communities. We have a couple that didn't get marked, so that's exciting. So today we're going to be hearing from Chris Anderson and Miles McGinnis. Chris has been the city administrator of Central City for 17 years. He's in a couple other communities before that. Chris has 3 kids, 2 in college and 1 in high school here. And you know, the thing I really like about Chris is his vision. He told me one time, I tasked my employees at the city, when somebody comes in, your job is to figure out how to say yes. And too often we don't have that. He operates with excellency, and he has Miles as his sidekick. Miles has been the economic developer here for 10 years. And, you know, they're just excellent at building partnerships. Miles is low-key, steady, humble, but they just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And let's see, they are really nice guys. I think that's the real key, right? So welcome to our learning network, Chris and Miles, and that's it for me. Miles and Chris, you can take it away, but you're going to have to unmute.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, did I hear you say I'm low-key and I'm mumbly? That's what my kids say. All right. If you can't tell, Sharon's in the other room. We're actually in the same building built by the Mary Foundation. But when HomeNE used to talking about housing, and we just welcome the opportunity to, when we were asked to give about the Showcase community, we're pretty proud of that. Doing it for a second time. And Lori, your question, I'm thankful for being able to work for a community and give back to a community that all gives us to us. So if you're ready, Chris is gonna join in as much as he can. So we're gonna go from here. And Sherry,
We are ready for you guys to begin, Miles. So it's all yours.
Thank you. They're not moving slides.
Okay, Miles, see if that, let me try to, it says it's waiting for you to control the screen. So try it again.
All right, let's try that. All right, we'd like to talk to you. We're very proud of being Nebraska's Showcase community for the second time. We'd like to tell you something about the story of Central City and what I call the second time around. I can't get the slides to move.
It's not going. Okay, I will run your slides.
Well, that's too bad. We're going to start at 2010, but one thing I'd like to make a point is what you see in the picture there is the Showcase Community Award, which is we're the very first community in the year 2000, and that has set the basis for this community. We've got a firm basis, and we're moving beyond then. But what we have we got to the point of the 2010 census where we saw a population declining all across the state the farther you get away from the interstate. The household size, meaning, you know, families are getting smaller. We had a big loss of an employer in town, an aging housing stock, and then just the statewide trends of people moving to the big cities. And the distance from I-80, Chris figured out basically the farther you are from the I-80, the faster the communities are dying. So we kind of started out with that in 2010 and with the census and kind of went from there. Can I get my next slide? We're going backwards. So in 2011, after the census came out, we did what's we call the Vision 2020. And with those strategies we've been building on for the past 10 years. And the main points of these strategies were to work on creating new housing opportunities, to improve our parks, improve the attractiveness of our community, create some first-class sports utilities, invest in infrastructure and marketing and image development. We spent this morning talking with the Department of Labor and some people from Indiana discussing this, and we're just going to keep on building off of that. Whoops, I think it might be working for me. There we go. We try to tackle the housing in Central City. Along the way, we've taken owner-occupied rehab. We had $90,000. I can't remember the exact number. Money we put towards that. But the one interesting thing that Central City has done is Chris and his people developed what they call the top 50 hit list. And what they did is those undesirable homes or homes that look like they should be falling down but aren't coming down, they made a plan to acquire and then remove those homes. And we in Central City were lucky enough to put in for grants, both NSP 1 and 3, and use the NSP 1 grant to acquire and demolish 8 homes throughout the community. Started working on the top 50 list, and we've been working. We're still working on that. Just a minute. The city has a policy of trying to acquire any house that is $10,000 or less and remove it from the properties so we can actually put some in the back. And the number 3, or the NSP 3 grant, was actually a program for the neighborhood stabilization with construction. And one of the things that I want to tell you about, besides building houses, is one of the opportunities we try to in Central City is try to take advantage of every program we can. When NSP 3 came out, we actually put in for second-story housing in downtown. But after we put in for that, the state came out and said you're too close to the railroad, so we couldn't build an M3 second-story housing. So we went ahead and used it to build infill housing on those lots. We also have a free lot program, and then what I'm calling when the factory closes, make a lemonade, and I'll explain that in a minute. So acquire, remove, and improve. With the NSP 1 grant, you see the house on the left. It was basically fire gutted, sat there for years, just like that. The owners paid taxes on it, but they did nothing to the house. We parked the trailer out front. The city was able to acquire that, level off the lot, clear the lot, and then the picture on the right is what you see now. We use the NSP 3 grants to put duplex with 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, and they're moderate income housing, which we actually moved over to management under a housing authority, so we're sharing the abilities there. We did this at 3 different spots, and so now we have 3 different duplexes. Our free lot program, which we've talked about over the years, but one of the examples is the house on the left. Again, we were able to acquire that, and that left an empty lot in the infill housing to be filled, but it looked a lot better than what the house does sitting there. We offer the free lot program, and that is to give a lot to any builder, whether they're a home builder, a person, an investor, it doesn't matter to us. If they're able to put a home on there, which will raise both the assessed value of the property and give a place of livability in town, we will give them that lot for nothing. And the benefit of this has been all these are infill lots, and the neighbors, once a new house goes up to an old house, everybody in the neighborhood starts painting their houses, picking up their yard, cleaning up. So we've done that all over town, and it's been really a bonus for us. In the beginning, we talked about the home plant. We had a business that closed. It was a manufactured home plant, and in that home plant were some partially made homes, and then other homes that the Development Corp helped to purchase in order to help the plant. The picture on the left, you'll see a row of houses. Those are actually the homes out of the plant. We had a empty or a non-aggressive subdivision being built, kind of sitting there. So the Development Corp and the city worked together to acquire the lots, take the buildings that they acquired from the home plant, have them put there, and then they were both used for housing and rental housing. The picture on the right is the same subdivision, but instead of selling the houses, putting their own house there, the city did 2 options here. The house on the left, they actually ended up carrying the 10% down. The Development Corp did, in order to get them. So the purchaser is able to do it with a down payment that they're still paying here almost 10 years later, but they're able to acquire. And the house on the right in that picture was another one of our free lot programs that we gave to a person. They put that lot The values, we have over $3 million in assessed value just from the pre-lot program that we've given away. The housing part 2 is what I'm calling this. And every community on the HomeNE network has had an issue with housing. We've had that first subdivision was slowly building. In Central City, we have a really high water table. So what we ended up doing is the city took on this as a 10-lot subdivision. They dug out a small lake, raised the land around it, and were able to put walkout basements. But we still didn't have the people or the wherewithal to someone to come in and build houses. So a group called the Central City Home Builders got together. They each pitched in approximately $5,000 a piece and basically bought shares. And with that money, they started to build a house. And the goal here was to build a higher-end house so the doctors, the lawyers, somebody who wanted, we could actually attract them to the community. What we ended up learning is that first house built was actually purchased by someone who lives here in town. The first house on the right there was that first house. It was sold before they were done. The next house to it was actually going. So actually the whole half the subdivision is built through the Central City Home Builders, and they put their money in just for the purpose of bringing the town up in the quality of life that we have today. We have the McCarg and Sugar subdivisions and the Buyer subdivision, and my slides are going crazy here. After the 10-lot subdivision filled, the city went forward to continue, and they invested, they bought 34 acres of farmland. With the help of Cliff Mesner, we were able to acquire this acreage from a older couple that no longer lived here, but their grandson did. But the city tried not to pay an exorbitant amount for the land to get this. And with his assistance, we were able to buy the land at a reasonable price. But the buyer's name is what ended up helping that. The buyers is the name of the former owners, and we developed that. With that, the picture on the right, it was 34 acres of farmland, and the city dug out a 7-acre lake, and they did the same thing. Took that fill from the lake, raised the land around it, and now we have a subdivision that we can have walkout basements. And this was a fully city subsidized, for lack of a better term, city commission project. This was all city money that did this subdivision. We were yet able to have any private developers take this on. The subdivision is now approximately 50% full, and we are moving on from there. But what that did is it helped to bring in private developers. We were able to prove that with the first subdivision and the Central City Home Builders and the buyer's lot, that we could get the value of the homes up enough where it made sense for a private developer to come in and build homes. No one would actually step foot to do that and take the chance to before that. So once we got to that point and could prove that, we've had actually 2 different private developers who now live in town, and they're 2 different avenues. The one on the left is a McCarg Builders, and they actually came to our office and sat down with us and said, what can we do to you to help the city? We want to make a profit, but we want to build something. And we told them workforce housing. So the houses on the left are actually 3-bedroom, 2-bath, one on a slab, and they sell for less than $175,000. Now we were able to, and he does quality work, and he's keep going, and he's also building the larger homes on Buyer's subdivision because of his work. But with the proof that we were able to build such homes, the houses on the right and the picture on the right is a 5-acre subdivision that the CRA sold to a developer, and he's been building this probably in 2 years. He's put up 6 houses on this subdivision, and each one of those is probably in the 220 to 280 range. But he's willing to put his own money and bring it in, and the city did help with TIP on the infrastructure on that. And it's laid out such that the next 5 acres, of which the Development Corp has kept a first right of refusal, we can continue that subdivision if developer so wishes. So we got the housing issue taken care of, or we got the got the houses where they'll have to build and sell them. The subdivisions are taken care of to sell them. So what else do we need to do? With that plan, how do we market our self? Part of our Vision 2020 plan was to do park improvements, improve the attractiveness of town, and build class awesome sports facilities. But with that, to move forward, what I like to call a collaboration and partnerships, and part of the reason I got this is out of when you're working on the showcase community requirements, this is one of the questions they asked, and I never really thought of it in depth before that, but the list you see there, the Boy Scouts, school system, the trails, the Merit Foundation, SCED, DED, and the citizens in general, that's actually what really helps make Central City a special place. And the city takes the task of working with these groups to help improve the town, and the town improves and we both make a good thing for each other. An example of that is the Boy Scouts. How many communities out there have Boy Scouts that are looking for an Eagle project? Well, Chris is the go-to man when it comes to that. They will come and say, hey, we'd like to have a project. He may throw out an idea or two, but the Boy Scouts do all the work. They have to plan it, they have to raise the labor, they have to do everything that there is to it. But the city has basically helped fund just the materials, and everything else is done by the Boy Scouts. And with that, we've got a pergola, which I'll show you a picture. One of the projects was we had a ball field that didn't have a fence around it, which was a little league, and we didn't want them running out in the streets. A gaga ball pit, which we never heard of before this past couple of years. Pocket park, and then also the Veterans Monument. If you've ever been to Central City, one of the key things you'll see coming in from the south is the Veterans Monument that we put in, and that initial monument was actually designed shape-wise from the Boy Scout project. And I throw in the flags, the American flags that line the street, and the reason I do that is because with the Boy Scouts, if you come through Central City on Veterans Day, 4th of July, major holiday, or even if a veteran has passed away and they're bringing him back to town, they will line the street with approximately 150 flags. And where they came into play this year, last year is when we did the DTR, we redid the whole downtown. We worked with this, and we've actually planned to put those flags back in. So we spaced out places, so we made sure that we incorporated that into our project. There's a couple pictures. The pergola on the right, the picture, the houses back there, that is the first Lakeview subdivision. Our aquatic center's off to the right, which you can't see. But that project was all done and designed by a Boy Scout, but it's sitting in one of Central City's parks, right next to the soccer field, right next to the lake with the trail around it, and it's there for everyone to enjoy. The picture on the left are what are called Gaga courts. And once again, the Boy Scout came to the community and said, what can I do here? I'd like to do this. Central City is in the midst of building a major new park. And so we took advantage of the offerings of the Boy Scout, and at the same time, they took advantage of the ability to do the project. So it's a win-win for both of us in that partnership. Going back to the housing, even this takes part. The house on the left was basically a disastrous looking site. That was our north entrance to Central City on the highway. The city was able to acquire the property, but had no idea what to do afterwards. So the pocket park seemed like the ideal thing. And rather than we took advantage of the ability of a Boy Scout project. Yes, the leaves are gone, but you'll see the raised flower beds, the trees, that each year those flower beds are all planted. It's taken care of. The trees are starting to grow. And that is another one of the Boy Scout projects that we've been able to appreciate, both from the Boy Scout and the community as a whole. The school system. You want to take this? You want to keep going?
Well, as we all pursue our goal of improving the community and making it more marketable so we can attract more residents, the city plays a role and the school system does as well. We've tried to improve our facilities in town, the baseball fields, the softball fields, so we can attract those big crowds to come and spend money in town. But the school has done their part. They've done a turf project on the football field and installed a new scoreboard with the screen on it and all that. There's a major new construction project going on at the high school. I think Miles knows a little bit more about the revision project than I do.
Yeah, sorry, I had to get a drink there. I'm trying out. The city went through, or the school system went through the revision process with the Department of Education and Department of Economic Development. I think the Department of Labor too, if I remember right. And basically it went through the whole process to develop a new career pathways curriculum, which basically not every kid's going to go to school for 4 years. And if they do, we, for the longest time, told them all to go be a lawyer and don't come back. But we have the businesses right here in town that need the assistance, and there's a lot of the kids that don't do that. So the career pathways is being constructed and built such that we have some metal working technical places in town, some ag businesses, and some STEM and science classes that are going on. With that new career pathways, the new curriculum, the school system has also increased their dual credit courses from 16 2 years ago to now 59 different courses, 59 different credits that they can get on dual credit. They've teamed up with local businesses, made partnerships to do two things: to know what they need coming out, but at the same time what they need coming back. The veterinarian is the biggest, one of the biggest showings. They took on a science project from the high school, and the student went to the veterinarian, and they were allowed to work together, and they became one of the national science awards by working. And I'm not exactly sure how to determine all the appropriate words for what they called it. But again, partnering with the school system, we have a 9.5 acre park that we're under construction, and I'll show you a picture of that. But Chris actually contacted the high school leadership class and said, hey, would you guys be willing to take this project on and tell us what we need to put in the park? And I tell you, from being an outside person watching these students, the high school leadership class took this for a semester. I'm sitting at this city council meeting, and each one of these students came in with the poster, and they stood up and said, we think, they drew out the whole plan. We think it needs a gaga ball courts. And everybody our age was saying, what are gaga ball courts? And then pickleball courts. But they went to the full extreme of shuffleboard for the elders to new playground for the younger kids. And that was all based upon the new park that we're building along the trail. The other partnership that is currently in the works right now is we're sort of daycare, childcare, like most communities are working right now. There's just not enough to go around. The school system is now converting to, they're adding a preschool. They're adding 20 more students to their preschool, and they're doing construction to do this. But what is this doing? is that they've teamed up with the Child Development Center, and starting January 1st, 20 more kids will be able to go do preschool during the day until 3, but school usually gets out at 3 o'clock. So what happens then? Parents aren't home yet. So the Child Development Center will take over at the 3 o'clock range and take it until 5 or 6. And then it's a 4-day program. So on that 5th day, the Child Development Center also takes that. So it's a win-win for our community and both systems as a whole. And one thing we don't forget is Nebraska Christian schools. We're lucky enough we have 2 school systems. We have the public school system and a private school system. Nebraska Christian schools kind of sit on the edge of Central City, and they have a lot of international students, a lot of students across the state that board there. But they're terrific stewards of the community, and they come into town at least a couple times a year, and we'll take on a volunteer project, whether it be cleaning up the trail, helping people throughout town, whatever. And in reverse, we do what we can to help Nebraska Christian blossom. School bond issue. The reason I throw this in here is one of the issues that helps make us a good community. In November of 2018, the school system put out a bond for $13.8 million. And their intent is to bring the career pathways and the STEM stuff. And the plan was to take the old school, the current school, with the gymnasium right in the middle, turn the gymnasium into 6 science classrooms, along with some additions to the building, and then add on the dome building on the outside, which would have been funded through a FEMA grant. And that new dome building would be the new gymnasium. Well, in this day and age, if you say, hey, we're going to build a gymnasium, that doesn't necessarily go over well. So that was actually defeated in November 2018, but the community did not give up. And just 3 months later, the school put forth a second bond for $7.99 million, but it did not include the dome, nor did it include getting rid of the other gym. But we've done smaller renovations. They're adding on, and they're continuing with the career pathways. The neat part about some of the smaller things they're doing is the part that they are adding are a new commons area, which is a possibility if the FEMA grant ever comes through. It's kind of hard to say no thank you. And so it's being built such there's enough land to put the dome and maybe a future use for that. Got any questions out there? My mouth is going dry.
Well, earlier we had a question. You mentioned the NSP program. Can you tell us what the initials stand for? I had responded to the question, but I wanted to make sure.
It's the Neighborhood Stabilization Program.
And that was funded through?
That was funded through
That was part of the stimulus package during the economic downturn. It was a temporary program. There were 3 rounds of it, and very helpful, but I don't expect to see it back.
Okay. And we did have a question regarding your demolition projects. What issues did the city have with asbestos when you were removing buildings?
Yeah, it's always tricky on the demolition. So we do what we're legally required to do. We have B2 Environmental come in and do a asbestos inspection. Whatever they find, we pay them or another company to come and remediate it. And when we hire the demolition company to come in and do the work, it's asbestos free and clear. So we follow all the regulations and laws on that.
Okay.
But it can get expensive. On these demolitions, if we've got asbestos issues, we can end up $3,000 or $4,000 into that for asbestos. And when you add that to $10,000 to $15,000 for demolition, you've got quite a project there. But we have been able to use the TIF program in the past to cover those costs of property acquisition, demolition, and asbestos abatement. It's a little bit trickier with the new TIF laws, but in the past that's been really effective for
Okay, great. And we do have a question as to the status of the Dark Trail project, and maybe you've got that coming up in your presentation. If you do, we'll
Good
address
segue.
it. Pardon me?
Good segue.
Okay, I'll let you continue. Thank you.
Look at that. Very next slide. What we call Central Park with the Dark Island Trail. The picture you see there is a diagram of exactly what the students designed. The right side is the north end, the left end is obviously the south end, but the line you see going through the middle is the Dark Island Trail. The Dark Island Trail is completed, but this is now the trailhead for the Dark Island Trail. And what is currently under construction in the Central Park, if you can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, the round things here, those are the Gaga ball course that were built by the Boy Scout. Some of the things over here are the pickleball course, the shuffleball course, and the basketball course down the other end. They're actually were just poured in the past couple weeks. So the progress, the extent, we hope to have the park built out by the end of next year. I'm looking at Chris. We're hoping.
It'll be done much.
That's the plan. We were also one of the first communities to be able to use the CCCFF grant for the use of the park. So we've got that funding for that. The National Nebraska Game and Parks granted some funds to build the playground equipment area. But this is 9.5 acres right in the middle of town, hence the Central Park. If you see at the top of that picture, that's the elementary school, close enough. There, we'll close the street. We'll have plenty of things to do. And on the right side, the end of that is the trailhead and the building we're sitting in, which you can't see in the picture, which is both. There's a Marion County Youth Council building and the Marion Foundation Activity Center and the Widman Cinema, which is the nonprofit cinema that we built. Any environmental, yeah, this used to be a rail yard. Depending upon where we're at, the one in particular was the Nebraska Game and Parks grant that they would not hand over the money until the environmental and that portion was completed. But this is all due to the foresight of I say, Chris, the willingness of the council to take on such a project, the desire to make Central City a place and a destination to come, and the partnership with the community and the kids to take part. One of the things right here in the middle is also a skate park, a very large skate park. And we were approached by a couple people from one of the churches in town and say, hey, I hear you got a skate park on the thing, can we help design it? Not only are they designed it, they're helping build it. Yes, the funding's coming from us, but we hope it to be one of the premier skateboard parks in the state of Nebraska. With that, down the middle is the trail. That is called the Dark Island Trail. And the partnership with the Trail Association, both the Merrick Foundation and the Nebraska Trails Foundation joined in to complete the trail. And the city owns the north 3 miles of it from basically the center of town to the river. It's 9.5 miles. It goes to the next town of Marquette. It's following an old rail bed system. We like to call this a linear park, along with the big park that we're using. It's all been surfaced. I do not put a picture of the Platte River Bridge, but there's an old railroad bridge that has been totally decked and sided with benches, so you can sit out in the middle of the Platte River or above the Platte River and watch the American Eagles flying all day and enjoy the fish, or just enjoy the day. It is being connected to that. The Byers subdivision has a trail planned around that lake and the other trails in town, and we're working to connect all the trails so you can go anywhere you want in town. With that, leads me to the Merrick Foundation. And we actually got asked this earlier today. What does the Merrick Foundation do with the city directly? Well, financially, we're not necessarily connected, but the Merrick Foundation is our county foundation, which has done an incredible amount in our community. And again, we're sitting in a building that is actually owned and operated by them for the community. They helped and assisted with the Dark Island Trail. We are building a 28,000 square foot. We're not. Somebody is. 4.7 million, 28,000 square foot county historical museum. People have donated money for a long time, which is kept by the foundation. And basically, they're finally putting it up. And I'm trying to remember if I put a picture in there of it or not. But it's going to be a very nice place to keep our historical artifacts from Merritt County for a long time. An ag and industrial building is a $2.2 million building, which includes now houses the Education and Nebraska Extension Office out at the fairgrounds, along with a fully indoor horse arena, which can also be used for an agriculture exhibition place. One way they help our businesses is they house the incubator office within their offices. And we combine together in town with the foundation, the development corp, and the chamber to hire a business coach, an outside business coach, to help all new businesses. Venture Center, theaters, scholarships, the foundation is an extremely important part of our community. And of course, SCED and DED. Who can live without SCED and DED? Well, whether it be NDN, HomeNE, taking care of all of our CDBGs, giving housing studies, they work strategic planning, continuing. Central City just renewed their leadership community, and for the second time, as you know, that's why we're being asked, been granted the Showcase Community for Nebraska, and I truly account a lot of that to SCED and DED, and they're essential parts of making that happen. The last part I'd like to do is about the people is the picture on the left is the Boy Scouts helping design it. The picture on the right is our Veterans Memorial. But it takes a lot of people to do it, to make our community what it is today, whether it be volunteerism, the football field makeover. But I'd like to throw out the code red for the communities out there, community notification. When we did the downtown project last year, and we had the entire downtown tore up, which if you've been to Central City, it's our main street and it's a highway, a lot of traffic. We committed to working on the code red system, and we were able to notify all businesses and people in that area on a daily basis of what's going to happen, what's going to be closed. And just that coordination has made the project go a lot smoother for us. When we talk about investing in our community or image development, invest in infrastructure, marketing, just a couple of things that you can see. Planners, and this is an old picture. That's we have 18 planners in our downtown area, and if you see the flowers nowadays, the flowers are about 3 or 4 foot tall, and they're really. I get calls from out of town when people pass through how this is. We also went through a branding idea to update our design, and we went from the old center of it all logo and idea to give an idea of what we really want to stand for. And being a nice, bright community, and I think that's what the logo kind of portrays there with the sun and the trees and the parks. I'm getting close. Believe me, I'm getting close. Anybody been working for a restaurant in town? Lori wanted me to talk about this a little bit. The picture on the right, there used to be 4 dilapidated buildings. The Development Corp acquired those structures, which is the red square, and the other picture, which is right across from Dairy Queen, which is the mainstay of Central City for years past. We did that to acquire and work on getting a new restaurant. We tried to market that, but we worked with whoever would think about bringing in a new restaurant. And if you come to Central City, you never have to leave anymore, because by clearing out that one lot, working with people to get a restaurant, instead of one, we have 5 new restaurants: Taco John's, Ronda, Side Street Deli, Prairie Creek Vineyards, and the El Agave Mexican restaurant. And we still have that empty lot sitting on Main Street looking good for the next business to come. Another thing that we like to tout about is our solar. Central City was the first community solar garden. Mesner Solar started this, and basically each one of those rows, rather than putting solar panels at your business and other things, the city built a garden, what we call a garden, and each one of those rows is owned by different businesses throughout the community. And the city of Central City does what we call net metering. So each one of those, the power that comes off those is dedicated and sent back to, the amount of power is deducted from their meters wherever their businesses are. And that works so well that the picture on the right is now another 0.5 megawatt of power that the city invested in to keep our rates full. Excuse me. How are we doing on time, Laurie?
Sorry, just maybe 5 more minutes, Miles, if you have that opportunity.
All right.
I just want to be
with all-
conscious of your time with the kids coming, so.
With all the projects that we were able to do, the images that we were able to do, the housing that we're able to continue, right now in Central City, this is a list of some of the new stuff that we're either been able to acquire or soon come to acquire. I've already talked about the Historical Museum, the Youth and Education Center, what I call the 4-H building. Built a brand new twin cinema. The Central Park is underdeveloped with the Dark Island Trail. We put new taxiways and hangars at the airport. The solar farm or solar garden. Hub 46 was a 27,000 square foot assisted living facility that went defunct on our main street in downtown Central City. Sat there empty with the assistance of the county, the Development Corp, and the unlimited pockets of the Mesner Corporation. No, the Mesners acquired this building and have brought this to a point of which I like to say we match some offices and other restaurant places in Lincoln and Omaha. The quality of this is outstanding, and we're lucky to have it as our fixture on a main street, and we continue to build there. And the last thing is the hospital. The hospital teamed up with Brian out of Lincoln. We've been working on a new hospital for 10 years, haven't been able to do it. Finally, what was agreed upon is a $20 million, 42,000 square foot hospital, of which Brian decided that the community needed to raise $5 million to prove that they were really wanted it in town, mainly because of the list of projects you see up top of where the community helped out on those. So just in the past month, with the help of anonymous donor, the community raised the final 90,000 of that, or 900,000 of that $5 million in a short amount of time. And the Dinsdale family donated 20 acres right across the street from the Historical Museum. And one coming this spring, you should see some dirt work going for a brand new hospital, which is great for our community, updating a 70-year-old, 60-year-old hospital, bringing new jobs, and that sort of thing. On the left is that Historical Museum that was talked about. On the right is the Hub 46, which is now a mainstay of our downtown area. If you're ever in town, please stop by, have Mexican food, go on up and visit with the Mesners or Gen Pro or a few other businesses that are in there. Going through this, what I would like to cover real quickly is the lessons that learned along the way. And I put these together. Chris hasn't seen them, but I just kind of like to go through them. And the first one is be careful what you wish for. If I can stop moving the slide so much. We wish for one restaurant with that commercial lot, and we got 5. And we're still at the commercial lot, but we're happy to do that. Now we have all kinds of food places to eat in town, and it's actually we're a larger stopping place along the highway, along with giving more options. Personally, I noticed my family does not leave town hardly at all anymore because we can eat out just about every day of the week at a different place. The next lesson is a fail could be a good thing. And by that, I mean by the school bond, where the school tried to put the school bond out for the big project. It didn't pass, but they didn't give up. The community didn't give up. 3 months later, put the school bond up. And as a whole, with the failure of the first one, helped support the passing of the second one. The Performing Arts Center, which I didn't talk about, but it was also sort of the same thing, that a bond or a vote went up to put the Performing Arts Center. It originally failed. People voted against it. When it came back through, the kickback from this was people saying, I wish I never would have. I'm sorry for doing it because you have such a wonderful place in the community. And what happens there is when people see stuff turn out for the good, for the bad, they start joining in on other projects. The next one is lemons out of make lemonade. And I use that for the home plant, but I try to use that for saying what is going wrong, what is not necessarily going to work out, what can we make good out of it. And the home plant is the biggest one. Where we've taken the homes out of there, where we've put new homes in town, we've helped the community. Just another way to a lesson to take a look at things along the way. If stuff doesn't work out, what can you do? Community involvement, ownership, and development. I think I've explained that, but that follows through. Once you get the community involved, you see, we took the process of improving much as we can. The community has bought in. They actually love it. They know if there's a commitment made by the city itself, then they will follow through with it. And now the community as a whole is supporting, and we're able to do more things. And funding, last one is, I like to think of it as find a way to use what's there and be willing to use it. The NSP3, I'm going to throw out what I described. We put in the NSP3 for that second story housing, downtown housing. Couldn't happen, but we were ready with another project to use it, and we were required it. They gave us $360,000 grant, and we built 3 duplexes for 6 new homes in town, 6 new units. The CCCF degree, the solar power, there's all sorts of things of which the city's been willing to take it, and I think we've all made pretty much lemonade out of most of them. You think? That's right. So, and I like to really attribute this to both the people that came before us, the people that are working now, and Chris himself, is the yes, we can attitude. We don't necessarily say no, we can't. We take a project, say yes, we can. But we can't figure out a way, we keep working on it to say yes. And I think overall, when you combine all that together in the last 10 years, using the Vision 2020, we've almost completed that. We'll see when the population comes out, but I think next, because of the foundation that was laid by the people before us, we were able to take a good spot. And once again, we're the first showcase community, and we're happy to be the current showcase community, and hope to help anybody else that would need it. Thank you for listening. Now, so if you have any questions.
We do have some questions, and I will ask those, but tell us what the population is of Central City. I don't know that you mentioned that, but this sounds very impressive for a large community. So tell us what your population is.
Well, that's a big part of the story. And our last census report was that our population was 2,934.
Okay.
And that was a population that was lower than the previous census. We saw population decline. And the focus of all of our efforts over the last 10 years with our Vision 2020 plan has been to make sure that our next census number starts with a 3. And we're pretty confident we're going to be there, but we need to buck the trend of declining population in rural Nebraska. And we need to turn that corner and generate momentum so that we grow in the future. Once you have that downward momentum, it's awfully hard to correct if you don't get a handle on it.
Okay. So one question that was asked, just tell us kind of overall what key roles did the city perform or get involved? How much involvement did the city have in some of your showcase projects or just the improvements that you've made?
Well, we get involved where we are needed, and we try to stay out of the way when we're not. And so, especially in the housing area, we were giving away free lots. We were building subdivisions. We were using TIF to subsidize projects. That's all city involvement with the goal of getting a market established and getting developers in place so that we can back out and let the free market take it from there. We don't want to be involved if we don't have to be, but for the housing issue, there was a non-existent market. It needed to be stimulated, and we did our part. Now that things are more successful in the housing market, we're not doing those subsidies the way we used to. We've done projects without the TIF, and we're trying to back off.
Okay.
In the areas of community facilities, parks, improvements, and amenities, the city's putting a lot of money into those projects from a variety of sources. It certainly helps a lot that we have 4 utilities, and our natural gas and electric systems can kick off a little revenue to assist with this. But the city's been really involved in a lot of things, but we always get out if we think that the private sector can take care of it.
Okay, thank you. We have a question. What is your business community doing to encourage people to buy local in Central City? Sarah's asking the question that probably a large number of your people maybe work in Grand Island, and it's very convenient after work to get your groceries in Grand Island. What are you doing to encourage the shop local effort?
Personally, I think, at least my family, I've noticed that even by increasing those number of local amenities that you have, such as the restaurants, there's no need to go to other places. Yes, if you work in Grand Island, you may do that. We don't have, we have a Bombard. We don't have a clothing store. We don't have a shoe store. We have the hardware stores, the grocery store, the gas stores, and some local markets, some trinkets and antiques. But as far as leaving town, we're trying to make amenities, trying to make a town amenities that you don't necessarily need to leave town to go see a movie, to go out to dinner. You're able to stay here. That's what I found.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that we have an organized buy local effort here. The reality is that we are a bedroom community. We embrace that. We know that over half of the people in Central City who work leave town to go to work every day. And so that's kind of part of the reality. We don't have an organized buy local effort, but I hope that the quality of businesses that we have in town just cause people to buy locally anyway.
Okay, thank you. Last question as we approach our 3 o'clock hour. Chris and Miles, just briefly, would any of this have happened if the city had not started a top 50 hit list?
Yes.
What do you?
Yes. That top 50 list, which we keep very confidential, that list of houses is kept in a drawer in my office and it's not a public document. But that was a tool, first of all, to shed light on the issue that we have 50 that can be identified and need to be removed. But that housing effort was a long series of projects, of which that top 50 list was one of them, but probably not a critical role.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Miles or Chris? Or as you're thinking about that, maybe what is an aha moment you have from their presentation today? If anybody would like to enter that into the chat box or open your microphone. And while you're thinking about that, you might have noticed that Levi is not on our webinar today. Levi is our deputy director here. He and his wife welcomed new baby boy to their family last Friday. So he is off enjoying Wesley Allen, I believe is the name, and we'll let him share in January more in details. But we do miss him and say welcome to Wesley. So anyway, Greg said he's got some notes and ideas and thoughts, and he appreciates the presentation today. Kelly has an aha there in Central City that partnerships are key, and that is so true. And Central City is a great example of partnerships. So I know Miles and Chris will be happy to answer any questions. How do they reach you if somebody wants to speak with you directly?
We've got pretty simple email addresses. Mine is Chris, C-H-R-I-S, at cc-ne.com. And that's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay. And Sherry has put that in the chat box. And Miles, is yours the same? Only
Nope, mine's a little bit older. It's ccecdev, so it's CCECDEV at Gmail.
okay.
Or we both can be reached at City Hall.
Okay. Perfect. And that's 308-946-3806, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, well, thank you both for joining us today. I appreciate it. I know that you were anxious and eager both to do this, but I think you shared a lot of great information. So job well done, you guys. So as we begin to wrap up the afternoon and let the kids come shortly to the Merritt County Activity Center, I just want to highlight a couple items for you. Our spring gathering will be coming in June of 2020, and on the heels of our fall gathering, we wanted to we're already giving some thought to what that spring gathering might look like, and we're excited and gaining some energy from that process. If you have some ideas for that gathering or future HomeNE webinar topics, we would love to hear from you. So be sure to email Sharon, myself, or Levi here at SCED, or give us a call. So we had a great time 2 weeks ago here in Holdridge with our gathering, and we're eager and ready to start officially planning the next one. So, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon here to give you the next announcement.
All right, so I want to thank all of you because HomeNE Learning Network won a national award, the National Association of Development Organizations, which is an entity that it covers about 550 economic development organizations, economic development districts across the nation. Awarded us an impact award for the HomeNE Learning Network. And the reason that I even submitted for that was because when you get that award, you get to be featured at a reception, and all these people that have come to the conference will come around and visit with you about your project. And I knew by doing that, of course they have punch cards, you know, they get so many punch cards and they get in a drawing, but I wouldn't sign their punch card unless they gave me a story. So I am excited that in January, we are going to be hearing about some things going on in Pipestone, Minnesota. I met the mayor. Ironically, he used to work at BD in Broken Bow years ago, so he's familiar with our area, with Nebraska. But we're going to hear a little bit about how funding from a local company and coursework developed by a tech school with the Economic Development Group purchasing and partnering to revitalize properties. They partner with high school and tech school students, and they're selling homes for the investment. And we just get to hear all about how they're doing what they're doing. I called it wrap around because they're just taking it from a lot of different aspects. So I'm excited about that. January 16th, 2020 at 2 p.m. Central Time.
Okay, so I hope you will all join us right back here on January 16th in 2 months as we hear firsthand about what's going on in Pipestone, Minnesota. I'm going to have to look that up on a map somewhere. So I've never heard of that community. But once again, thank you to Chris and to Miles for your presentation today. We enjoy working with our communities, and Central City is one of those communities. So with that, are there any last questions or comments? We will be inundated with school kids here shortly, but do want to give you the chance to ask any last comments.
Lori, I did look it up, and it is in the southwest corner of the state.
Okay, perfect.
So very
Perfect.
close to South Dakota.
Okay, so well, thank you again for joining us, and I just offer blessings to you for a holiday season, and we will see you back here in 2020. So have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for letting us be a part of this.
You are very
Thank you,
welcome.
Miles.